Have you ever felt like you're reading an old, dusty letter that has nothing to do with you? Well, we're about to change that. We're going to dive into this ancient, urgent letter to a church in a city called Corinth, and we're going to see how its message is, believe it or not, incredibly relevant for us right now. So picture this. You've got this church in Corinth. It's in a booming port city, a total melting pot of ideas and people. And this church, man, it's gifted. It's got everything going for it. Great speakers, deep thinkers, you name it. But underneath all that success, there was a huge problem. A kind of cancer of division was just eating them up from the inside. And this letter, well, it was like the emergency surgery they had to have. All right, so if you were writing a letter to deal with a mess like that, you probably start with, all right, people, what is wrong with you, right? You'd expect the author, the Apostle Paul, to come in hot. But he does the exact opposite. He doesn't start with anger, he starts with grace, reminding them of who they really are. I mean, listen to that. Paul is genuinely grateful for them. This isn't just some polite intro. He's saying, I thank God for you guys because you have been enriched in everything. That means they were overflowing with powerful words and incredible knowledge. He's building them up first, reminding them of their strengths before he ever gets to their weaknesses. It's just a masterclass in how to lead. Okay, so Paul has just reminded them how gifted and blessed they are. And honestly, that makes what he's about to say next even more painful. After celebrating who they are, he has to pivot and address the real reason he's writing. And it's because he's heard some seriously bad news. The problem was division. Yep. In verse 11, Paul says he got a report from some people from Chloe's household, and the news wasn't good. There were contentions. Basically, this super gifted church was just being ripped apart by arguments and cliques. And here's what it looked like. It was like a modern sports rivalry, but with spiritual leaders. You had Team Paul, for the people who love the church founder. You had Team Apollos, for the fans of the really eloquent, charismatic speaker. Then Team Cephas, that's Peter, for the old school crowd. And then you even had this other group, probably thinking they were better than everyone else, saying, oh, we're on Team Christ. They were literally picking sides and building their identity around personalities and totally missing the point. And this is where Paul just drops the hammer with these killer questions. He asks, is Christ divided? I mean, the answer is obvious, no. Then he asks, was I, Paul, crucified for you? That's just ridiculous. It's like he's screaming, why are you putting my name on your team jersey? I am not the hero of this story. He's showing them that all their little teams and factions are actually shattering the one thing that's supposed to hold them together. So after pointing out this disease of division, Paul doesn't just say, hey, can we all just get along? No, he offers a much more radical cure. He tells them they need a complete change of perspective to get their eyes off of human leaders and back onto the one singular message that unites them all. And here's where it gets intense. Paul explains that the central message, the story of a crucified Savior, draws a line in the sand. To one group of people, it sounds like absolute foolishness. Just nonsense. But to another group, to those being saved, that same message is the very power of God. There is no middle ground. This really gets to the core of it. Paul says, look, my job was never to be some slick speaker or a celebrity pastor trying to build a fan club. In fact, he says he deliberately avoided using fancy words because he didn't want his own cleverness to get in the way. He wanted the raw, unfiltered power of the cross to be the only thing that mattered. And now Paul really digs in, contrasting the way the world thinks about wisdom and power with God's completely upside-down way of doing things. He's about to totally redefine what it means to be wise. So in Paul's world, you had one group, his fellow Jews, who were always looking for a sign. They wanted a big, spectacular miracle, lightning from the sky, something undeniable that would prove God was really at work. They wanted hard proof. Then you had the other major group, the Greeks. They were all about philosophy and logic. They wanted a system that made perfect sense, something that was intellectually satisfying and elegant. They were searching for a flawless argument. And here is the punchline. The message Paul preaches, Christ crucified, it fails both of those tests, spectacularly. To the people demanding a sign of power, a crucified Messiah is the ultimate symbol of weakness. And to the people searching for elegant logic, the idea of God saving the world through a brutal public execution, it was offensive, a stumbling block, and just plain foolish. Then Paul delivers this absolute knockout line. He says that what looks like God's foolishness is actually way, way wiser than any human philosophy. And what looks like God's weakness, a man dying on a cross, is more powerful than the greatest human strength. It's a total reversal of how the world keeps score. So, to wrap up this whole argument, Paul brings it right back home. He makes it super personal. He basically tells the Corinthians, if you want proof of this crazy upside-down wisdom, just look around the room. Look at yourselves. He asks them a simple question. When God called you, how many of you were wise by the world's standards? How many were influential? How many of you came from a fancy family? And Paul's answer is blunt. Not many. Pretty close to zero, actually. God didn't start his movement in Corinth by recruiting the A-listers. He did the exact opposite. And this wasn't an accident. This was God's game plan. He deliberately chose what the world calls foolish to show up the wise. He chose the weak to shame the strong. He chose the nobodies, the people who were despised and counted as nothing, to cancel out the somethings. Why? To prove that worldly status and human talent aren't the source of the power. So what's the ultimate point of this whole upside-down strategy? Paul lays it out right here, so that no one may boast before him. The whole system is perfectly designed so that no human being can ever stand up and take the credit. It removes any reason for us to brag. And this is how he lands the plane. He ends by quoting the ancient prophets, summing up the entire chapter. The cure for division, the answer to human pride, the whole point of our faith, it's to stop boasting in ourselves, or our favorite leaders, or our little tribe, and instead to put all of our confidence, our identity, and our glory in one place, and one place alone, the Lord. What a powerful message.